and welcome to the GamerGuild Podcast, your weekly show where we round up all the video game news right here for you on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV on your podcast platform of choice. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight, and joining me this week is Mr. Rob.
Hello, nice to be here.
Nice to have you. No Chris this week because he is currently in recovery from a hernia operation. As far as we know, as far as we've been talking to him, everything went well. He just needs a little bit of time to recover before he's fit and fighting to join us on the podcast again. Yeah. So we wish you all the best, Chris.
Man, he's been newly improved and strengthened through the miracles of modern medicine.
He was telling us about the surgery. Seems like he had a good time when he was just like off his tits on there. Yeah. I think he said the doctors give him something. It was like having 6 pints at once.
Yeah, and Chris is an expert on what it feels like to have 6 pints.
Yeah, that guy
in very short succession.
Yeah.
So trust his judgment.
Yeah. But as we said, we've got a great show lined up for you this week. We'll be discussing the future of Xbox after weeks of speculation, what could be. The official Xbox podcast has revealed all. We have the PlayStation Plus titles for mid-month February, and we'll be going into a bit more in depth about Helldivers, which is seemingly becoming one of the biggest games in the world overnight. Rob, I'll let you talk about is that when we get to the news. But we do actually have a shout out as well, because our good friend Bjorn is doing his Gaming for Mental Health charity event again, starting this, I think it's this week, Friday the 23rd of February. I think we will be involved in some way, shape or form. Our plans aren't finalised yet. We're waiting for Chris to get out of hospital before we can discuss that in depth, but we will be supporting the event. All the links and stuff that you need if you want to support the event will be in the description of this video, or check over Bjorn's Twitter account. It's Bjorn Fristrom. And for more news, and if he's listening, you're more than welcome to put whatever you want in our Discord server for make it easy enough for people to access all that.
Yeah, this has become
stuff.
A regular kind of thing in the calendar on an annual basis, and it's always a lot of fun. So if you're not aware, do follow and support as best you can. Yeah,
mental health, it's very important, and I know in the UK it's just funded poorly. So I think it's an unfortunate situation that we have to rely so much on charity, but the reality is we do, and more people suffer from mental health issues, especially with how complex life can be nowadays. I think there's just a lot more stuff to think about in life compared to what's like when we were young. Even in our adult life, there's just more stuff that to think about. And I think, especially with a lot of kids now, I always feel sorry for them, because when we finish school on an evening, after about 8 hours of playing football on a hill, we would just go home, and then you wouldn't speak to anyone other than your family till like the next day at school. But kids nowadays, it's constant with social media, and kids are shit. Imagine how much of a nightmare it would be for us if we were able to constantly message each other when we were kids.
I know, it wouldn't have ended well. I don't think we'd be doing this podcast today if that was the case.
No.
We all got very much sick of each other a long time ago.
Well, looking after your mental,
I agree with the message. Yeah,
looking after your mental health is very important, and supporting charities, again, I think it is unfortunate that it is needed, but it is needed to provide people the right care they need. You would go to the doctors for a broken arm, so when your brain's not working properly, go to the doctors for that as well. And that's what it's all about, helping people make sure they live good, happy lives.
Well said.
So, but before we get into it, a quick bit of housekeeping. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you're kept in the loop of all of our amazing content here at GamerGuildTV, such as this show, the weekly podcast, which goes up on Mondays at 8 a.m. on YouTube and on all podcast services. So if you prefer listening to us in podcast form, you can. It's all there for you on every single podcast service. You can even get on things like Ask Your Amazon Alexa if you want to. I've done that before. I remember the first time we did that. I did that with Sounds of Stadia once I got it approved. And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" I told my smart speaker, and it played my show. That was such a moment, like when you first knew, I think we're like a month or two in to Sounds of Stadia when we got that over the line. But it's still there, all still works. You can even listen to. Actually, no, you can't listen to all of our old shows. All of our old shows are banked on YouTube, though. So if you want to go back and listen to the first ever episode of Sounds of Stadia, you can. Don't know why I'm talking about that, but I am. We have other shows such as our weekly live streams, where this week I was finally returned to Ocarina of Time after several months of promising I'd get back to it. Chris pointed out to me during my live stream, actually, that the last time I streamed Ocarina of Time was before Game Awards.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It's just been...
Yeah, that's going back a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like Game Awards is December, I think, early December, and now we're mid-February. So it's been like good 2 months. But there's been scheduling issues and stuff. I just, back end of last year, talking about mental health, I was just burnt out on life generally. Not necessarily the podcast stuff, but I was last month or two of the year, I was just counting down the days till I broke up from Christmas. And I've been in a much better place since the start of January. But yeah, it was just last 6 months of last year was just a bit rough, which is one of the reasons why I don't think I did nothing in my Christmas break for the channel. Like, because I was thinking, I'll do some streams then, and just rest, just recover.
Yeah, life gets in the way, man. That's okay. Yeah,
so it's just been a schedule. It's been a scheduling thing, more than anything. And then we've been showcasing other games such as Helldivers. And what else have we played this year? We played quite a few things. Lego Minecraft was another one we played this year. Or was that before Christmas? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We have loads of live streams, all safe here on the YouTube channel. So head over there and watch us play whatever you want. So, Rob. Oh, we also have a merch store where you can get hoodies, which I'm actually rocking my original Sounds of Stadia hoodie today.
Nice.
Yeah, because I didn't know what to wear, and I saw it like, that'll do.
That must be going up in value right now.
Well, this is before we had a merch store, so you might not be able to get this exact hoodie, but we do have some Sounds of Stadia merch on our merch store. That was something we decided to do, like, okay, we're going to, for the long-time viewers, if you want a Sounds of Stadia t-shirt or hoodie, you can get one.
Yeah, so the official line is to invest money into Sounds of Stadia merchandise because it does go up in value, and that is indeed financial advice from this channel. So
we do not offer any legal financial advice, whatever disclaimers I need to put on the end of that.
It is financial advice, Richie. It is.
I cannot guarantee that Sounds of Stadia merchandise will go up in value. It's possible if the channel explodes, but I doubt it. Yeah. Rob, what have you been playing? Other than Helldivers, because I want to save that because he has news about Helldivers.
Oh, God. You threw me a curveball there, because if I can't talk about Helldivers, what else do I talk about? Witcher. I've been Witcher 3. I'm still chugging along on that game. Playing kind of what's the word? I'm a surrogate player for my girlfriend who wanted to go through the story. So
you're the controller, she's the brains.
Basically, yeah, which sums up a lot of our dynamic, to be honest. Yeah,
I don't think that's even true, to be honest. I know you're really a friend.
Yeah, she's just a lot smarter than me.
Yeah.
So I'm on. Is it Witcher 3 must be fair game for spoilers, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, if you don't want spoilers for Witcher 3, there'll be a timestamp in the description for like the new section. You can jump to it.
But I've just put Uma through the trials to kind of lift that curse. So I've just finished that mission, and I'm heading out to kind of collect my posse to go fight the Wild Hunt. So still enjoying it, still taking my time to run through all the side quests, and just like the depth of that game, like it is ridiculous when you get into it. Like you kind of forget what the main quest is after a while, and yeah, still living that, and that's taking the time which Helldivers isn't. So yeah, that's a pretty short one for me this week. What about you?
I mean, Witcher 3 is an amazing game, one of my favourite games of all time.
Yeah, I haven't even touched the DLCs yet because I got the Ultimate Edition.
I just never have. I think the game is so big, I never got the platinum on it as well. It's always
I think I messed up the platinum.
You know what? I think there's a few Gwent cards I think are locked before, like, you get locked out of if you progress too far. And I missed them, and I realised I'd have to go back and play like another 20 hours or something to get to the point where I could get them. And I just couldn't be asked.
It's one of Triss's side quests, isn't it? Where you have to, there's like you go to like a masquerade ball or something, and there's like a Gwent tournament in there.
Yeah, but I think there was just a few early cards that if you progress past a certain point, then you can't get back. Like, I remember there was something to do with like a trophy. I'd missed something that I couldn't go back to get, so I would have had to start another playthrough after my hard mode playthrough to get it.
Yeah,
It's like, and I just couldn't be bothered. But I have been playing Persona 3 Reload.
Yeah,
Pretty much, yeah.
Still continuing.
I am. It's not as good as 5. It's nowhere near as good as 5, in my opinion, to be honest. I am a little bit disappointed in it in that front. I'm still enjoying it, but where 5, the narrative gets going quite good and it feels like it's been. I think I've put about almost 20 hours in, and I don't really know what the story is yet. It doesn't.
Is it purely narrative?
Nothing major's really happened. There's been a few things. I can see the seeds getting planted, but it feels like at this point I want them to stop planting seeds and do a thing.
Yeah, I mean, considering some games tell an entire story in 20 hours, and
I know,
you're still not quite sure what's going on.
I know it's a slow burn, and there's been a few like, okay, here's like a story mission, but then the story mission hasn't really revealed much about the overall plot. It almost feels like they're spending too long a bit to set up the mystery.
Okay, got you.
And it's like, no, I need a bit of stuff going on. Like, you're meeting the cast of characters, and all the characters are quite interesting, but it doesn't feel like anything's happening yet.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
It feels like there's the promise of things to come. Is like, I don't know.
Coming.
It's just not coming. Where I know with Persona 5. Fairly early on, you meet the first main antagonist, like literally within the opening hours of the game, and you get to learn about him, and you learn about his past, and you start progressing with the character as you're getting introduced to characters on taking him down. It doesn't feel like I've met an antagonist yet.
Yeah, which for 20 hours in,
I can't point to a single character that went, that guy's definitely an antagonist. Like,
yeah, there's a bit of a shock coming there, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it is a remake of a PSP game, so it being a bit more gameplay focused and focused on the just kind of gameplay. As because I imagine when Atlas were making it, there's kind of a lot of thoughts about people going to be playing this while they're commuting to work and stuff, so not going overly narrative heavy and going more about getting that gameplay loop settled in first. I kind of see why. I'm just hoping I keep playing, hoping the story picks up and I get a really big story push at some point. It feels like it's going to happen, but it just never seems to.
What's that movie where there's a guy and he gets like drunk or something, and he's like, I accidentally watched gay porn and I was expecting the girls to come, but they never did. What is that human person?
I can't remember what it's off, but it's kind of like that. I'm waiting for the narrative to really kick into gear. But that's basically all I've been playing. So, Rob, I think we should get into the news section because we're about 30 minutes into the show. So would you like to introduce us to the
graciously gathered GamerGuild Gazette, a.k.a. The news.
The news. And as always, our news is brought to you by Helix Heroes, which you can join over on the YouTube channel for as little as 99p, which gives you early access to this show. And until very recently, actually, Rob, it got you early access to my live stream of Ocarina of Time, but episode 3.5. Because I've just done episode 4, so 3.5 was a piece of additional content where... Because episode 3 ended with me getting the Master Sword and becoming Adult Link. Spoilers for like a 8-year-old game, but
fair game.
That's why I ended episode 3, and I ended episode 3 after the Forest Temple. But 3.5 was I went back to being a child Link and just did a lot of the collectible cleanup stuff. And the mistake I made in my live stream, which I recorded on Friday, so yesterday at the time of recording, was there's a song that you get to compose called the Scarecrow song. Because it's been months, I could not remember it, and it's like, I wish I could. There's been a few points like, that I need to use Scarecrow song there. It's nothing game breaking, not remembering it, but it's like collectible stuff like, while I'm here, if I had Scarecrow song, I could get over there and get that side room done.
Did you not go back and watch your old recordings?
I didn't. I skimmed it to see, like, to remind myself where I was at, but because I know the game so well, all I needed to know was where did I leave off, and I forgot to check Scarecrow's song. So before the next episode, which will be in about 2 years' time, I will go back and do that.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a bit of a tangent, but that was until recently a members only thing. It's now available for everyone. I pushed that on Thursday before I went live with episode 4 on Friday.
Nice.
Right, let's get into the news proper, Rob. Xbox. There's been a lot of speculation. Are Microsoft going to ditch Xbox? They're going to ditch the brand? Are they going to ditch the physical consoles? And they announced that they were going to have a business update and then explain what was happening via an official podcast. Did you watch the podcast, Rob?
I did not watch the podcast because it's just too many podcasts to watch now. But I am.
You're versed in it.
I'm versed in the subject, and
right.
Yeah.
Before we get into the detail of what I think it was Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty, all three of the biggest names in Xbox, were all on the podcast together. The Xbox podcast occasionally gets one or the other, but having all three of them together is kind of a bit of a big deal. It's like, okay, what's this going about? What were your overall impressions?
This is really difficult because I don't know how much I got sucked into like the maelstrom of content that was around this kind of particular podcast. Like, it seems like the internet just took it, and I guess
we went nuts with it. We went crazy.
And they blew it up beyond any sense of reality. And I guess even like when we were speculating last week about it, like we could say we were part of that to a small degree. One
thing I do like about us though is we don't just pick a side, plant our flag in the dirt and go, "This is what it will be." If you say anything else, you're wrong. Scream down the microphone. We're kind of like, "This is what it could be," but we're probably wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but like in general, and we'll get into the detail of it later. It seemed like 80% reiterating what has already been said in the past, but just a bit more clear and committing to it. And then like 20% maybe new stuff, really, I guess.
Yeah.
And that seems to be like, like the game exclusivity we'll talk about. But in general, it just seemed like it was a reaffirming things we already knew or were already heavily inferred anyway. I don't know what your take was.
My general impression was someone leaked a bit of information that they probably shouldn't, and the press and also content creators and the internet just generally went absolutely nuts with it to a point where it's like to a ridiculous level. And I think the reason that Phil, Sarah, and Matt all appeared on the podcast was to kind of like, guys, chill the fuck out kind of thing. Is like, it is actually, I think, a relatively, there's some big news items in there, but nothing is like massive, like earth changing. They're not going to redefine the industry with these kind of moves. They're just big news for what's going on with Xbox and Microsoft's first party stuff, where people were generally talking about, is this the end? And Microsoft pulling the plug on Xbox. It's like, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a level-headed conversation and tell you exactly what this is, and it is nowhere near as big as you think.
Yeah, I mean, like, you'll have seen the headlines where it's like they got very hyperbolic around, is Xbox doomed? Is this the end of Microsoft pulling out of gaming? It's like...
We talked about it last week because that's what the news was. That's what everyone was reporting. It's like, Microsoft pulling out of gaming. It's like, well, that's weird. I remember last week. Why would they buy ABK and then immediately pull Xbox? Doesn't make sense. Yeah. So let's get into what the news actually was. So it was confirmed that 4 Microsoft first-party titles are going multi-platform. Phil Spencer decided he was not going to reveal what they are, and the reasons he gave were because the teams around these studios, the publishing teams and their publishing partners, all have plans in place to do that at appropriate time. And it's, although he is kind of the head of Xbox Xbox, the ex-boss, if you like. He doesn't feel it's not really his place to pull the rug out from under them. In fact, if anything, it's his place to make sure the rug stays under them. So he did confirm that two games that were not on the list, and that was Starfield and Indiana Jones.
Yeah, so it seems like there's definitely like a tier system, at least in their heads, I think, in terms of what titles to keep and what titles to I guess release to the wider ecosystem, right? Yeah.
He confirmed that of the 4 games, so it is only 4 games. It's not. He did say that it's not a major change to the Xbox exclusivity rules for new titles. There's 4 games they have in mind that they felt would do well by being on other platforms as well, and basically that it's kind of what we were talking about last week, where the sales or the communities are kind of plateaued a bit. And at this point, there's no good reason, no good business reason to keep them locked to the platform. So he said there's 2 community-driven games and 2 smaller titles that were never intended for platform exclusivity. Let's go speculation, Rob. What do you think they are? Because I think it's all but confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, Sea of Thieves is the obvious one, right?
Yes.
It's impossible. That's not going to be it. As you said, the community is really well developed on that game now. And it does no harm to introduce a fresh glut of new players.
No one's buying an Xbox to play Sea of Thieves nowadays.
No, exactly.
It's a nice to have in the library.
Yeah, 100%. Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
Again, obvious. Given the success of that game and the fact that it was dropped so casually as well.
It was dropped so casually, but then that kind of shadow drop of the game, because it is a smaller title and it was a passion project from that studio.
Yeah,
it worked so well for it.
Yeah, 100%. And there's no good reason. Again, the game's had its peak, fantastic for what it was, but no one's buying an Xbox for Hi-Fi Rush anymore, right? It's not a thing. You take the other 2. Yeah, well,
the other 2 were that we strongly suspect are Grounded, another games as a service type. We actually covered that. We did a live stream of it. It's a survival game, but where it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as a survival game. So your biome is like the back garden, but you get shrunk right down to the size of ants, and you're building like structures out of leaves and grass and stuff. It's a really cool concept, to be honest. I quite enjoyed it. And Pentiment, which was an Obsidian passion project. So what I think they've realised is the sales of Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, forget about the games as a service ones, they're always going to do better with bigger communities.
Yeah.
That's the obvious angle there. It's like, we've done what we can with them on Xbox / PC. Let's get them onto other platforms and get another influx of people playing them. Like, I could see Grounded doing really well on Switch. Sea of Thieves, I can see a lot of PlayStation players quite enjoying that.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, really, that these could just give these games a bit new lease on life. With Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, these are both smaller passion projects. So the more money these make, the more inclined that Xbox and the high ups there will be to greenlight it. Because if Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment sell really well, because at the moment I think most of their sales will be Game Pass.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
If you put Hi-Fi Rush on Switch, everyone who doesn't have an Xbox who's heard about this great game, it'll be such an amazing title to play on the Switch. I could see them selling absolutely tons of copies, which funds the next
100%.
game.
Yeah, and you have to think as well, like when they're saying like the titles were never intended for like exclusivity, as good as those 2 games are, like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, you can't imagine everyone in the like Microsoft HQ like jumping for joy that they've secured this title for exclusivity, right? And pinning hopes on it as a volume mover. So
I think he's
makes sense.
I think he's being cheeky when he says they're never intended for exclusivity. I think my interpretation of them words is they weren't designed from the ground up to make the most out of what Xbox is.
Yeah, I feel like there was indifference as opposed to...
It was like, these are just great games that could work wherever. It's not like, okay, this game only really works on Xbox.
Yeah.
Although I don't
Yeah,
think
it's a fair
that I don't
distinction.
think Xbox has that many features that would pretty much go. This game would only work on Xbox. You could argue things like on the PlayStation side with things like the adaptive triggers and stuff that can change the way the game feels.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever really been utilized that well. To be honest, adaptive triggers, it just seems to be like it's like you can just turn this on or off really if you like it or not. But yeah, I think he's being maybe a bit cheeky with that. But the point is, like, yeah, I think these titles, if these are the titles, because they're not confirmed, just make sure we stress that, could do well on other platforms. And he did kind of stress as well that they have this kind of play anywhere mantra. That's kind of where they've been going for years now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you can play on PC, you can play on console, you can play in the cloud. All they're effectively doing is opening these 4 titles up to more hardware to play.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense. And I think the best place to see that mantra like manifested versus PlayStation is when you compare the PC apps for both games.
Yeah.
Sorry, for both platforms, which are just night and day in terms of ease of use, design, functionality. It's yeah.
Let's move on, because there was quite a few other news drops, and like I mentioned that there was Phil Spencer specifically said there's no major change exclusivity rules, but we have a quote from him. I have a fundamental belief that in the next 5 to 10 years, exclusive games, which are exclusive to one piece of hardware, are going to be smaller and smaller part of the gaming industry. Bit of a big statement, that, to be honest, considering how well Sony's been doing over the last like generation and a half of their first parties and the existence of Nintendo.
It is a big statement, but I do agree with him.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing the grassroots of that, with games coming to Steam and PlayStation on day one. I think like that's going to be a bigger thing. And, Xbox always like release their stuff on PC as well anyway, through like especially Game Pass titles. So when you look at how far the industry's came in the past, like in the last 5 years, like I can't disagree with them on this, to be honest.
I think Game Pass has kind of redefined the industry, because Game Pass has effectively forced Sony to change the offering of PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
That is clearly a response to Game Pass. And Microsoft putting games on PC and on console as kind of, I think that, again, that's something that's kind of forced Sony to really think about bringing their games to PC. Although I don't think they've really had an absolute smash hit with their games. They've done well. Some of them have done well. Some of them not so much. With the exception of Helldivers. Helldivers are doing really well. But yeah. But I think he is right. It's the one piece of hardware bit. I think he's right on. I still think exclusive games are still going to be a big part of the industry in 5 to 10 years' time. It's the one piece of hardware. I think you could play exclusive titles on multiple pieces of hardware, but that are locked to an ecosystem. So locked.
Yeah, fair.
So even like Sony's online offering, Sony's PC offering is, we effectively giving this stuff to PC players who probably wouldn't have a PlayStation anyway. That's probably their thoughts. Xbox is a bit more open. I can't see Nintendo changing their strategy at all. Nintendo will come out
culturally as well.
Nintendo will come out with something absolutely fucking bizarre, like in a few years' time. Hopefully, the Switch 2 will be exactly what we want it to be, and then they'll bring out like a yo-yo or something. It'd be that you play your games on.
Yo-yo.
Yeah, it'd be something like that. It'd be ridiculous. You know what Nintendo are like. But either way, all the games would be like exclusive to the yo-yo.
Yeah, you can't play them on the Switch either for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, more news as well, because there's lots of news in this, actually. Considering there's only I think it's only 20, 30 minutes. It was
very short, wasn't it?
It was quite succinct, which I kind of liked. It's more succinct than I am being right now. We have our first ABK game coming to Game Pass. Diablo 4 will come to Game Pass on March the 28th.
See, this is a very, very big deal, I think.
Yes.
I think this is arguably the biggest piece of news from this entire kind of segment. So, not only is it happening way before I thought it would do. I wasn't expecting ABK games for, the back end of the year at best, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's Diablo 4 as well. Like, that's a big game. I just didn't see it happening so quickly.
I think this is the perfect first title.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty is the one that's going to be mired in lawsuits and stuff. That's the one they have to be very careful with. So I can't see Call of Duty coming anytime soon. Diablo 4, when it came out last year, came out to critical acclaim. It was the biggest game of the year when it dropped. Mm-hmm. But then it quickly it felt like it just fell off a cliff. I think the first few patches and stuff kind of broke the game a bit, and it feels like it's been fighting to get back up there. But now I think it's just been kind of quietly ticking away in the background. It's found its audience. It's fine. It coming to Game Pass, I think it opens itself up to another influx of gamers. And crucially, I think it's almost like a soft relaunch in some ways. You could see it. Like
given the audience it's opening up to, it is like a second launch.
Microsoft would be stupid not to put trailers out for this to really give it a push. Start next month. Really push this game. Get a TV spot or something, like a few billboards coming to Game Pass, because there's a game in there. And from what I've heard, I'm not so close to the ground in Diablo, but I think it is kind of back to being people are really enjoying that game again.
Yeah, so it almost is like a second breath of life for it.
Yeah.
And this is a very well played move. And again, the time on it as well, like end of March. It's
a good time.
6 weeks, 7 weeks away.
Yeah.
Fair play to them. That's a very good, very, very strong move.
But crucially, it's the first. It's the first of probably many. Like, you could get the entire Diablo back catalogue there, and then you go from Diablo and maybe you start thinking about Warcraft or StarCraft, and that's just staying with the Blizzard team.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft. I think World of Warcraft could do so well on Game Pass. Because World of Warcraft, you still have to buy the game. You have to, buy the recent expansions, and then you have to pay for your sub.
Yeah.
Every month. If that comes to Game Pass, maybe you still have to buy the most recent expansion. But if your sub is covered, it's a way of getting people back into it.
Yeah, definitely. It's still crazy to me. Like, you have to pay I know this is like the norm when we started playing Warcraft, but paying a monthly sub for a specific game seems like weird now.
Yeah, it's the start of online games, and but there's I think there's probably microtransactions and stuff in there nowadays as well. So, but if instead of paying your monthly sub, you could take it out on Game Pass, maybe you're getting a lot of gamers who still play hardcore Warcraft players are looking at it and going, if I get Game Pass instead of the sub, or maybe you just get rid of the sub and just you have to have Game Pass.
Eventually, yeah.
So you just transfer everyone who's paying a monthly sub over to Game Pass Core.
Yeah, like you're still getting the same revenue as well.
You're still getting the same. Yeah, it's going instead of going through ABK as a business, it's going through Microsoft, but it ends up in the same place anyway. Eventually, obviously, there's accountancy, paperwork, and stuff, but the same money goes effectively to where you need it to be. And then you've also got these people now with Game Pass, which means they might be inclined to play other games on Game Pass, which gets them more interested in Xbox and more of an ecosystem. So you're converting hardcore PC gamers into Xbox gamers.
I still love, I have a soft spot in my heart for the hardcore World of Warcraft players. Because when I was at its peak, I used to work in a game shop, and you knew once a month, certain people would come in to do you know when you had to you could buy the physical cards at a game shop to your membership. Maybe your mum wouldn't let them use a credit card to pay for or something. And you could guarantee these hardcore WoW players, this is the first time in a month they've seen daylight since it last came out to buy their the monthly sub pass. They just come up to the counter with a hood up and they're hand over a little box to pay for the for the sub, and then just like scuttle off again for the moment. It was so good. Oh, good times.
Do you remember the South Park episode, the Warcraft one? Is that the sort of people?
That I will use intimidate and shout.
Stan, please use a fire spell, please. We're so polite about it.
Yeah.
You know what? If Warcraft comes to Game Pass down the line, we've got to play it on stream.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you got to get your
mod. We'll have a montage of get hyper obese as well.
Yeah,
so.
you got to get your mods. Get all your mods in for. So you couldn't play Warcraft without mods.
Oh no.
Yeah. Anyway, a few more news stories from this podcast. So Game Pass has actually surpassed 34 million subscribers.
Nice, pretty toasty figures.
They had a bit of a flex as well. Xbox being the biggest publisher of games on PlayStation.
You kind of know Phil just wanted to stick that one in, didn't you?
Yeah, he's usually quite humble actually, but it's like I have something. But yeah,
you know what? Like if you're too humble all the time, you just get like, it's someone like Phil Spencer. You have to flex every now and again, right?
Yeah, you do, because I think it's been a rough few years for the Xbox team. They just haven't. They do feel distinctly in third place at the moment. Where even during the Xbox One era, I don't think they felt like that much in third place.
It felt like a fight in the Xbox One era. It
doesn't quite feel to me that they've stepped into the next generation.
No, I'd agree.
Yeah, they're getting there. I think Hellblade could really be the first go, right, guys, you've finally found it. Because things like Starfield didn't feel like a current gen game, to be honest.
No, it could have been.
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy what I played of it. It just didn't feel. It did feel a bit dated. Redfall was crap, and there's been not much else really. It's been quite barren. But moving on from that, they acknowledged the job layoffs and stuff, and it's like more of a. This is just kind of really business as usual. They're trying to make it sustainable. We do have a conversation about job layoffs and stuff later down the line when we talk about Embracer, so I'm going to save that kind of conversation for there.
Mm-hmm.
They reiterated the commitment many times to the Xbox console hardware. It is not going away. That was basically the news. Like, Xbox is not going away. It is the best place to experience Xbox games. That's kind of what they're sticking to.
At least for the next few years.
Yeah.
Until
They re-up their commitment to game preservation and games digital libraries, using Windows games, which I hate. It feels the Xbox UI is still garbage. Like, it's not clean. It's a mess. It's difficult to find what you're looking for. What they really need to do, in my opinion, is just scrap it and redesign. Do a full don't patch it. Just leave it as it is and work on a full redesign of the UI. Keep it clean. Simple.
Yeah, I think like the Xbox console UI is still very much stuck in this tile mentality, which
I don't mind. I don't mind the tile stuff, but I actually think PS4 was perfect. It's almost about as perfect as you get. You go to, there's a button that takes you to the store. This is where you can go buy your games. You have a button that takes you to PlayStation Plus. So this is where, if you have PlayStation Plus, this is where you can find the PlayStation Plus games. You have a button that takes you to your library. All the games that you have access to in there. It's nice and clean. Then you just had you can make folders if you want to organise things yourself. Mm-hmm. Seriously, that's what I'd look at and go, how do we take this and give it a bit more of a modern twist? You don't need to overcomplicate it and keep it simple. Keep it clean. But yeah, I've never been a fan of the Xbox UI since I got an Xbox. Anyway, let us move on because I think we've talked about Xbox enough. And again, the whole kind of thing was, the news isn't as big as you think it is.
No, it's more reaffirming past commitments and I guess being official about stuff that's been heavily implied, right?
And the one last commitment they made was day one. Xbox Studios games will be on Game Pass day one.
Yeah, which we never speculated wouldn't be, right? Like it's not.
No, that's kind of the biggest selling point of Game Pass, to be honest. Alongside the huge library stuff, but it is a huge selling point. We have our PlayStation Plus games now for mid-February. So, Rob, what is your pick of the bunch there?
So we've got a couple of relatively big titles, I guess. There's like Need for Speed Unbound in there. There's The Outer Worlds, like the I guess like the Ultimate Edition kind of version, like Space's Choice Edition.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla is in there. But a couple of like Lego titles as well. I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot for me this month because I am not touching Assassin's Creed Valhalla for anybody because I know how big that title is and I just don't want to.
It's a good game, actually. I enjoyed Valhalla.
Yeah, it's just too much of a commitment. Far, far too much of a commitment. Just too big, so I'm staying away from that. I might check out Need for Speed Unbound.
Didn't you already check that out at some point?
I think I played like the demo. Like you got like a 2-hour trial or something, and it was okay.
Yeah.
If I need like an easy title to jump into, like when I've got a spare 10 minutes, I might have that in the back burner. But it's not a big one for me this month. What about you?
I think there's actually some good sleeper hits in there. To be honest, I think the mid-month it continues to be better than the early month, which is I think it is definitely by design. This is Sony pushing you onto extra or premium, which I don't have anymore. But my pick of the bunch would be Tales of Arise. That game was just really, really good. If you like your JRPGs, you're more actiony focused rather than turn-based focused. It had a really interesting story to it. It played really well. It wasn't like, when you get massive open world RPGs, it just like Valhalla, for example, they feel unmanageable.
Yeah.
It's kind of that slightly old-fashioned where it's more like an open area. So you enter an area, the area is fairly large, but is constrained, and then you will transition to another area. So I like them sort of stuff because then it almost feels like you can pick at it bit by bit by bit, rather than just like, here's the world, and you can just go wherever you want. It's like, that's a lot. And I'm someone who likes to go to every nook and cranny as well.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
Tales of Arise.
It's a strong month, right? Like, it's not for me, but it's definitely a stronger month than we've had in the past.
Yeah, but if you're into JRPGs, I definitely recommend Tales of Arise. And there's some of the older Tales games that have made their way over as well. Tales of Zestiria, Tales of Symphonia Remastered, Tales of Vesperia. I haven't played any of them. It's the only one in the series I have played is Tales of Arise. And if I had more time and PlayStation Plus Extra, I would be tempted to give them a go.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, I'm sticking with Persona, and I've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming. And so while this is a good month, our world is meant to be really good as well. Yeah. While it's a good month, there's other stuff. This is why I dropped all the way back down to Essential. Because while there was good stuff constantly coming, I wasn't playing any of it.
That's the thing, like, a game's like, it doesn't matter how good a month is if you never play anything from it, right?
That's exactly it.
It's very much like a futile exercise to rank these, knowing we won't play any of them, I guess.
Yeah. And to be fair, I could potentially, if I really, really, really wanted to play, borrow my girlfriend's account.
Just pump up her trophy count.
She wouldn't be against it. A trophy count's higher than mine. Let's move on. Right, I'm hoping, Rob, this might be the last time we ever talk about this game because I'm sick of it. Skull and Bones. We have some reviews. It's got a Metascore, as it stands, of 64. Thoughts?
Brilliant. I don't have anything to say about this game. It was a game that had to come out because of like international law said it had to come out. Don't think anybody wanted it to come out. Nobody cared. It's a very mid title. That's all I've got to say, really.
Yeah, there's a few reviews, like IGN's review. Skull and Bones isn't tripping on my words there. Skull and Bones isn't the successor to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag that many seem to want, and it isn't many of the things Ubisoft itself said it would be at various points in the story's history, which when the game's been getting developed for like 10 years, it's going to change. But that's on Ubisoft, really, to be honest. Not an excuse for them. It's like, you kind of did you did shit at developing the game. But the seafaring RPG we ultimately got is still surprisingly good. Still around the Indian Ocean, firing cannons, mortars, and giant ballista at your foes is a fun time. The RPG mechanics and cooperative build crafting is as deep as the ocean, with plenty of awesome gadgets to grind for. And the economy simulator is impressively in depth. It doesn't quite fulfill the promise of a decade-long crew support yet either, with a thin endgame, almost no story to speak of, and general instability that sometimes makes the adventure feel like a rough draft. But he's hoping some of the shortcomings can be washed away by the waves of content already planned. And it goes on for a bit longer, but the general theme I'm getting from IGN's give it a 70, which is one of the higher reviews. There isn't a huge amount out there at the time of recording. And that review reads to me as, we can see the potential, but it's not quite there, but it could be. But that's my issue with that, though, is 10 years of development.
Yeah, like one of the best random quotes I came across in the reviews was, there are brief windows within Skull and Bones where I can see some remnants of passion. Everything else is a chore. I think that sums it up quite nicely, where there probably was a really good game, like a good passionate title in development about 8 years ago. And then it's just being battered around.
Skull and Bones was, I think, initially greenlit before Ubisoft went hardcore games as a service.
Yeah.
And I think it's been caught up in that. It's probably had several changes of directions, like monumental shifts. And what this game... I think
there's been 3 major ones, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Like with team shifts and stuff.
In what this is going to be. And then it feels like it's just this mismatch of ideas that they've got to the end and went, we'll just keep stuff that works kind of really, probably over the last year or two, really kind of scrape together a playable game, a game that makes sense, but not something that was very much a passion project. It didn't have a clear... We'll talk about Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush was a passion project that had a clear vision of what they wanted that game to be, and they executed it. I think most great games have that. When sometimes you need... It's one of them... Skull and Bones almost feels like it was designed by a committee which was largely made up of marketing executives rather than game designers. So they've looked at trends and went, we must incorporate this trend into the game, rather than having like a team of people go, right, this is what our vision for this game is. This is why it's awesome. Marketing team, this is why this game is going to be awesome. This is why people are going to love it. You need to go and sell that. And I think this is sometimes why I always feel like Ubisoft are always chasing trends. Are they over-analysing the industry? But the industry moves quite quickly, and games take a long time to develop. Yeah, so if you look at a trend, then try to incorporate it into a game, by the time the game's made, the trend's moved on.
Yeah, they're trying to catch waves, and they're just not quick enough to do that, especially on the size of the titles that they spit out. It's just never going to work. And I think Skull and Bones is... But like, laying on top of the fact that like they got funding from... Was it Singapore?
Singapore, yeah.
Yeah, Singapore.
So... They were basically had to release this game.
Yeah, like I think when you lay that on top, you get like a recipe for just a complete... I want to call it a disaster of a game, because
it's not a disaster.
No, if you think of this from the resources that have been pushed into that game over how many, close to a decade now, financially it's a disaster.
I think this game will find a community. I actually do think this will be... I don't think it's going to be a massive success. I don't think we're going to look back on this as like a No Man's Sky kind of situation where it really kind of redeemed itself. I think this will have a couple of years of ticking away in the background, and then it'll disappear quietly. Kind of like... I never remember the game. It's the Extreme Sports one that came out with... Oh, what's it called? This is my point. My point. It's I remember the game. I cannot remember the name, and it's just you don't hear about it. It's a games as a service extreme sport game by Ubisoft, and it just seems to disappear in the background. I think that's what Skull and Bones is going to be. And the biggest issue with it is a $70 game. And Ubisoft, like we talked about last week, Ubisoft are talking about this as being a quadruple A game. It's like, yeah, you're getting in your own way with stuff like that. Just sell it for what it is. Yes, you're not going to make as much money as you'd like, but market at 40, you'll sell more copies.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the success of that. That's like that tactic when it came to Helldivers.
Yeah,
like the exact
Yeah,
there's a pricing strategy for these types of games which works really well.
And Helldivers is a very well polished game. This is not.
Yeah.
So if this was marked at £40 and it's a bit rough around the edges, people could forgive that. And then they'd focus on what the game is rather than what the game isn't. When you're paying that sort of money for a game, the quality's got to be there because it's a lot of money. Yeah, and
you get compared next to other £70 titles.
That's it. Is why? But I'm not even comparing Skull and Bones against $70 titles. I'm comparing it against other exponents of the genre, of the survival game genre. Why would I play this over Valheim?
Yeah,
that's a question you need to ask. And Valheim's like $5, I guess something.
Yeah,
or it's free on Game Pass. Why would I play this over Grounded? Why would I play this over Lego Fortnite? I know it's probably got more depth than some of them games, other than maybe Valheim. But that is the question it needs to ask. And
I don't think there's an answer to it either.
No, it's the most It's probably the most expensive exponent of of the survival game genre. It has its own unique thing with being all about piratey stuff, which is quite a cool concept. I think the concept is of a basic pirate themed survival game is actually really cool. Just doesn't feel like they've executed on it, or at least not to the level that the price would warrant.
No.
But honestly, my recommendation is if you are interested in Skull and Bones, get Ubisoft Plus for a month and give it a go. Because then if you don't like it, you've only invested 1 month for Ubisoft Plus, and you could go play some Assassin's Creed or some like Rainbow Six or something as well. In that time,
to balance out.
Yeah. So that's my usual approach with Ubisoft now is just I'll get Ubisoft Plus to play it. And then if it does fall flat, it's not the end of the world. But let's move on to another game that actually I think I wanted to talk about this game because I think this is a game that is very much at risk of just being forgotten about. I hear nothing about it. And that's Banishers of Ghosts of New Eden. And that is the action game, action RPG from Don't Nod, the guys who made things like Life is Strange. It's a bit of an odd fit, but overall, at the moment, its Metascore is currently sitting at 78, and it does have a few hundreds in there.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, this game completely went... I overlooked it, or went under my radar, or whatever type of saying you want to say, but it looks pretty strong for a development studio of its size as well.
It's a game that I forget even exists, so I'm going to read the blurb. So I'm reading from Steam. Hunt Ghosts has 2 memorable characters in a story-driven action RPG where your decisions carry dramatic consequences. Torn between honouring your oath to the living and saving your departed partner, how far will you go for love? So the tag has got his narration, lore-rich, third-person, emotional, which Don't Nod do pretty emotional storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting a lot of 8s and 9s out of 10, so it's it seems like there's a good game in there that it just feels like it's just getting ignored.
I know, it kind of sucks, right? Because, it's a smaller studio. They're on the back of some continued success. And it just seems to have dropped and you just don't hear people talking about, which is a real shame. And again, we're probably guilty of not following the run up to the release as well. But again, when we talk about the time commitments we have on gaming now, it's really it's a symptom of just so much stuff coming out all the time. and it's a shame that titles like this get kind of just drowned out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, reading from Push Square, Banishers Ghosts of New Eden sees developer Don't Nod reach a new development peak as it marries an excellent narrative with engaging, enjoyable gameplay. Poor enemy variety and technical flaws hold it back from true greatness, but its excellent story-focused side quests on the other side make a few drab combat encounters worth pushing through. The studio's best game to date. It's yeah, okay, maybe the combat could do a bit improving, more enemy variety. But if you're looking, but that's not what Don't Nod are known for. This is the first game of this style that they've really worked on. This could be the first of many. And I don't really see any kind of negative reviews, to be honest. The lowest I've really seen is 7s.
No, but I think the most like conversation I've seen around it, in like in comment sections and stuff, it's like I'm interested, but I'm maybe not like, was it $60? $60 interested, which I don't think it's particularly fair. But
and
I don't know, people seem a bit indifferent to it.
You have to think as well about the context. This is released on February the 13th. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth drops this month.
Yeah.
I'm personally keeping my money for that. And I'm not the only one.
No.
And then you got something like Helldivers. So if you're on your RPG side, you got Final Fantasy coming. If you're more on your games as a service, Helldivers has just dropped.
Yeah.
If you don't have infinite money or time, it's like, unfortunately, games like this do sometimes fall through the cracks, which is why I wanted to highlight it here.
Yeah.
Because this sounds like it is a good game, and I know there's probably someone listening who might be thinking about it, and go play it. Let us know how it was. Like, genuinely like to hear, like, especially from like studios like Don't Nod, who I've enjoyed their games in the past. And I like to see them like kind of like push themselves, and it's nice to see a studio grow and become a bigger studio, and then you're not just stuck with your Square Enixes or your Sony first parties, and there's not, and it's nice to see a studio that hasn't been hoovered up by a bigger publisher yet.
Yes is the key word.
Do well, yeah. I mean, I could see Sony buying these guys at some point, but they haven't yet. Actually, they are Focus Entertainment. It is published by Focus, but I don't think Focus own Don't Nod. I think it's probably just a publishing partnership. But yeah, but let's move on. Rob, we've been teasing about it all show. Helldivers.
Can I talk about Helldivers?
You can talk about Helldivers.
It's so fucking good. God damn, this is a fucking great title. £35, and you get the choice between either just blitzing giant bugs or going to Robot Vietnam. It's such a good game. So, for context, I didn't play the first Helldivers.
Yeah, but the first Helldivers was a top-down twin stick shooter, so this feels to me like a very different game.
100%, yeah. Like this is very much that they've taken the concept and just built on top of it in a way which is just went down so well. So, what's the specific positives of the game? The entire world that like you inhabit is obviously like a parody of certain like kind of sci-fi tropes and whatever, and they just do it so well. And the gunplay, the worlds, and just the general community you get pulled into, just like it really sucks you in and it really like draws you in. Like the way certain guns feel compared to others is really interesting. Like the stratagems which you can throw down to, you're essentially doing like Vietnam style carpet bombing if you want to. It all just like combines to make just a fantastic title. And if you're playing like a bug level, it can be like kind of pretty chilled out, in some regards. But then if you go on to like the autonomous, like the Terminator, I can't remember what they're called, like side of the map, it's just like the most stress-inducing, PTSD promoting kind of like a game that I've played in a long time, and I just recommend that everybody who likes third-person shooters just tries this game out because it is fantastic. And that includes you, Richie. I think you should try this title out as
You
well.
know what? I've had people reach out to me on Twitter who found it insane that I'm not playing.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm glad everyone's enjoying it, and I think I would enjoy it, but it does very much to me look like the sort of game I would enjoy for 1 or 2 evenings and drop.
Yeah,
because I'm not into games as a service. I don't like that loop, just the gameplay. I need the narrative to really keep me going, which is why I was moaning about Persona earlier.
See, you say about the narrative, it's quite an interesting one. So, like the way it works, I'm not sure how much attention you paid to the stream last week.
I watched the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, cool. Obviously, you have Super Earth like in the middle of the map.
Super Earth.
Yeah, and then you have like the bugs coming from one side, and then like the automatons, that's what they're called. You have them coming from like the other side, and they'll have like events where, like last week, for example, like the automatons launched like a surprise attack into some new sectors, and like the community was like, "Holy fuck, guys, we've got to get on this!" And like everyone like piled into these worlds to kind of defend them and stuff like that. So there is a narrative going on there, and it gets pushed by developers, but it's depending on how many people pile into like certain worlds, or if certain worlds get overrun. Like the narrative is kind of fueled by like the player-based commitment, which I think is like a really interesting concept, which not a lot of like other services have tried to do that like to a degree, but I feel like this game's like really nailing it. So yeah, that's the only bad thing I have to say about the game is like the quick play functions are a bit shit at the moment, so it takes a while to find a game.
That's the stuff I don't like. I don't. When I sit down and play a game, I want to just play the game. I don't want to be playing with randomers on the internet. I have no interest in playing with random strangers. I enjoy playing with you and Chris. I enjoy playing with our Discord server when we're streaming or something. But like, if I was just want to sit down and play for a few hours, I don't want some random stranger in my team. I just want to play the game. So I don't really vibe at all with multiplayer games in that sense.
Oh, you're missing out, mate.
It just doesn't do
really
it.
Are missing out.
I don't think I am. I know why you think I am.
You can come to my house and you can play for a bit.
But for me personally, if I owned the game, I'd quite happily play with you and Chris in a random evening. No bother. I'd really enjoy myself. But games like this feel like it would be a commitment to more than one evening. So then we'd constantly be trying to schedule it in, and it's like
it is, but it's like,
and I just don't want to do that.
Yeah. I always have like a live service game.
Can you play the single player?
Yeah, I've done a few on single player. It's not as fun.
Yeah,
but you can do it.
I don't know. It's just games as a service stuff like online stuff like it just doesn't do it for me anymore. It has in the past, but I will enjoy myself for like generally, I'd buy it, I'd play one evening, I really enjoyed that, and I'd never go back to it. And I'm trying to be a bit more. Yeah, I'm trying to be a bit more selective with how I spend my money on gaming at the moment because I've got other things to pay for, and the price of shit keeps going up. And again, I've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming late this month. I've currently got Persona 3 I'm playing through, so it's like I don't really have any time. I'd have to find time to put aside in already quite busy schedule to play a game that I don't particularly care about. I'm glad it's doing. That's my thing. It's like it's not for me. It's not a reflection of the game at all. I think it looks like an amazing game, just not for me.
The first game I bought like the credit for, like the premium credit.
Yeah,
it's the first game I've done. I've ever done that. So
yeah, well, actually,
it caught me there.
There's something. Well, it's nice you mentioned that because the developers say games should earn the right to monetize. That's from the Helldivers 2 director.
Yeah, I think the way they've done it, it's actually really, it's like a nice, as far as microtransactions go, it's a good way to do it. So the way you progress through equipment and like buy new equipment is you earn what's called war bonds, like on the map for complete missions and whatever, and you use them to like unlock certain guns, in the marketplace. There's also, and then like you have to spend like 30 medals in tier 1 to then unlock tier 2, and you get like more advanced and it keeps rolling like that. So you have that as the standard progression system, but then you also have like a premium section, which you unlock the premium section by spending like 1,000 what's called like premium credits. You can find those in game, or you can buy it as like a like a typical pack of credit on the store. So like you unlock the actual premium content by spending money on the premium credits, but then you have to use the standard credits to then unlock the actual items in it. So it would only take probably about like 10 to 15 hours to get enough of the premium credits to kind of unlock it all anyway. So I think that's like a nice little way they've done it. And if I can support, I paid like £35 for the game. If I've spent £8 to support the devs and support the studio a little bit more, like it's worth it for me for that title.
Yeah, I'm reading from a Twitter exchange here where the quote comes from, and Schrodinger's Matt said, "I'm glad you guys are continuing the trend of very fair and non-predatory microtransactions in PlayStation multiplayer games. Quite happy about that. So many live services end up dying because they chase greed instead of fun and a big player base. Love this game so much." And the game director responded, You have to earn the right to monetize. I truly believe that if people want to support this title, they have an option, but we are never forcing anyone to do so. That for me that's the right mindset, because microtransactions, I've said before, I typically don't like them, but I don't think they're necessarily evil. It's how you incorporate them into your game, and the game should be fun without them. If you want people to spend more money in your game, make it so that they want to rather than feel that they need to.
I think it's when the game is only viable when you have to hawk microtransactions at every corner. That's when it all starts to fall apart. But Helldire's been a bit more of like a smaller title. They've been able to sell it at a lower price point.
Yeah.
And you just don't feel like you're getting your eyes pulled out. Is the key theme.
I mean, I think Chris spent money on it before he'd even done the first stream.
Yeah, he got like the Battle Pass equivalent, didn't he? Yeah. You got the Super Citizen pack.
But that's it. If you make a fun game, people like... You can even credit things like Fortnite with this. Fortnite, the microtransactions don't feel predatory. Because what they've done is, while I'm not a fan of Fortnite, they've made a good game that people really enjoy playing. They enjoy playing that gameplay loop. So people want to spend money.
Yeah.
I know the stories out there of like kids spending thousands of pounds, but like... don't give your kids your credit card, kind of.
Yeah, I have mixed sympathy for those people.
I think the small game developers can do to prevent stuff like that, but I also think that you shouldn't put the whole onus on the game developers. Parents should also take some responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, learn about what your kids' hobbies are. I mean, it's easy to say for me who isn't a parent, but I do think that if you're a parent, you should learn about your kids' hobbies and understand them to a level and go, so they know what they're up to. You don't have to know everything.
12 hours a day on it.
Yeah. So I think that is just part of parenting, and I sympathise because, as I mentioned earlier, when we're talking about mental health, the world is much more complex.
Mm-hmm.
That goes for parenting as well. Like, parenting, I think, is a lot more complex now for our generation than it was for our parents' generation. Because when we played games as a kid, you put a cartridge in a box that wasn't connected to the internet. Your controller was attached by a wire to it, and it went into the single television in your house.
Yeah.
That's a lot simpler than, oh, I have a smartphone. I have access to all the world's information, constantly getting barraged by my friends to play this game. Oh, and when I play the game, they're taking the piss out of me because I've got the default skin on, so I'm going to have to buy some new skins. Oh, and then next month the same thing happens because my skin is now outdated. So, yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not easy at all. Moving on, we've got a few more stories to cover. Do you think, Rob, the PS5 is reaching the end of its life cycle?
I fucking hope not, because I feel like I don't feel like any game's really tapped its potential, right? Like, it just seems insane to me that this is even a topic. So if you think... I think the game that really pushed the 360 to breaking point was GTA 5. I can't think of a title that's done anywhere close to that like degree for the PlayStation 5. I mean, fuck, we've only just stopped making PlayStation 4 cross compatibility.
I know it's insane. I think it's absolutely insane we're talking about this because I think every subsequent generation is almost destined to be longer than the previous one because you're getting diminishing returns on the improvement in the hardware. You look at how good games look now. It's like, yes, I know you can go buy yourself an RTX 4090 Turbo and like an i9 and 8 billion gigabytes of RAM and have the game looking absolutely insane. You can. There is a level of quality above what the PS5 can handle. But in terms of how that impacts how you play the game, it's diminishing returns. Like, games are already incredibly beautiful and running at things at very like smooth frame rates. So it's like not every game needs to be running at 240 frames per second at 4K, 4K with HDR and ray tracing. That is the future, but we don't need to get there yet. It's also not really viable to get there yet because the cost of the hardware to do that just makes sense. Is insane. But this story actually comes from Sony. Because reading from IGN, after sales of PlayStation 5 failed to meet expectations, Sony has said the console is entering the latter stages of its life cycle. Sony had set an ambitious target of 25 million PS5 sold during the current financial year ending the 31st of March 2025, but has now revised its forecast down to 21 million sales.
I mean, it's close to the life cycle of a phone than it is.
It's
like
they're making a big mistake here. I think they're looking at the sales and maybe seeing them taper off, and probably comparing this to previous generations of consoles and going, well, now to start thinking about PlayStation 6. When actually, I think they're not. I don't think if they truly think it's coming in the latest stage of its life cycle, I think they're not. They're looking too much at it in isolation. They're not reflecting on what's going on in the world. Like, the UK has just entered a recession. Other countries are in similar situations. The cost of living crisis is not a UK specific thing. It is massively exaggerated in the UK compared to like the rest of mainland Europe right now, but it still exists everywhere. People are tightening the purse strings a bit, and gaming is a luxury. So your sales are going to decline while people are paying for things like food. I think that's, for me, that would be my interpretation. So you look at what's going on in the world. You even look at things like the war in Ukraine and stuff. That is still going on. That is still having impact on people's lives.
I mean, I guess the caveat we should make is this was done at, I believe it was like a
it's an investor call thing.
Yeah, it was more of an investor call. And there was a quote where it was said it was like, looking ahead, PS5 will enter the last stage of its life cycle. As such, we'll put more emphasis on the balance between profitability and sales. For this reason, we expect the annual sales pace of PS5 hardware will start falling from next financial year. So maybe we have to make a distinction between what they see as a commercial life cycle and what we see as like a generation, like a gaming life cycle. Those two things might be different. So to try and put like a, in the way we were talking about at the start of the show, not to like run away with concepts. Maybe that's what it was, a poorly worded attempt to say that. Like, commercially, we're chilling out a bit. I
think you're right when you put in the context of like an investor call. This is them going, look, sales are down. Don't worry, we're focusing more on the profit rather than the sales.
Yeah. And of course, sales going to go down because more people have them, right? Like, that makes sense.
It's tapering off faster than we expected, but doesn't matter.
Fair, I think they had very lofty expectations for what the PlayStation 5, by the sounds of it. So it's failed to meet expectations.
They're still forecasting 21 million in the next year.
Yeah, it's the top console. It's the top console by a massive margin.
And hasn't had that much in terms of killer IP yet. PS5.
No. So the thing is, if they're missing sales targets, it's either like the market's not as strong, which it won't be because everything you mentioned just a minute ago, or they've had unrealistic expectations, and someone needs to like be held accountable for giving this fantasy. This always happens. Like regular listeners will know, like I work in marketing, and there's always some arsehole in like a management team that says, "Oh, we can hit this magic sales figure."
Where do you get the number from? Then, my arse.
Yeah, it's because it makes me look good, and I know that like the typical exec only stays around for 2 years at a company, so by the time it actually fails, they're fucking long gone. So like it is a case of someone just put down a stupid number, and then that's why it's missed expectations.
Is that a true figure? The typical exec only sticks around at a company for 2 years.
Yeah, a typical head of marketing, the 18 months, I think it is.
That's insane.
Yeah, right.
Like. For me, you want the executives to be sticking around for a long period of time, because they're the people overseeing the vision of the company in the long term. Not necessarily at 18 months. That's a short term gig.
Look, because what happened? Like, we're getting a bit on a tangent, but
sorry.
I'm just like blowing out my ass here. But like, yeah, so head of marketing will come in, stay like take 6 months to bed in, 12 months of actual work, and then they'll start looking for another job. That's how it works. And again, by the time any shit hits the fan, they're long gone.
So 6 months of bed in, 6 months of actual work. The last 6 months of trying to find a new job because people have realised they're shit.
Yeah, well, it may be like 18 to 24 months because those people tend to be on like 3 months' notice or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's like after 6 months of work, people realise they were paying this guy like £1 million a year. It's like he's not worth that. He's not really contributing anything. So he's out the door before he's pushed.
Yeah. So when you see someone saying like they've failed to meet sales expectations, just know that someone has given them an expectation from somewhere.
But I just hope that this isn't Sony's actual plans, because I think the PS5 should be around for quite a bit longer. To be honest, I reckon the PS5's got at least 5 years in it, if not more.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I want some like design for PlayStation 5 games to really push the envelope.
Yeah, and we are. I know it feels like COVID was a while ago now, but the impacts of COVID in the gaming industry are still present.
Yeah,
games just have been slow to get out the gate at the start of this generation. And it feels like the early phase of the generation where you have that crossover between generation phases is only just ended. So you'd argue we're almost in for me, it feels like we're in the early part of the mid stage of the generation.
Yeah, it should be like the plateau stage, at least in terms of commercials.
Yeah. This should be the bread and butter of the generation. And maybe in about 5 years' time, you enter the slow death of the platform. Or if you're talking about Nintendo, the very slow death of the platform. We did have some Nintendo news, which I'm going to skip for time, because basically Switch 2 is potentially launching in 2025, and leaks say will be backwards compatible. We've covered this stuff before, but I just wanted to get it out there. Since it was, let's finish up, Rob, with Embracer. Embracer seem to be intent to become the new Activision of the gaming industry and being everyone's most hated company.
It gives Activision a break, doesn't it?
Yeah. They've cancelled 29 unannounced games during a 6-month period last year. What the fuck is going on with Embracer, Rob? And this is on top of 1,387 job cuts.
I mean, I guess this is what happens when you go on a spending spree to acquire a bunch of companies. At the pace they were doing it, you have to expect like the quality of due diligence will drop a little bit, and maybe some details will get overlooked. And like, unfortunately, like they've built a company off the back of massive debts and acquisitions, and as we both know very acutely, debt is more expensive now in this year.
Yes, it is.
It's just a case of, they built an organisation on a world that doesn't particularly exist anymore, and now they need to quickly change.
I think this is just a massive case of mismanagement, to be honest, because I think they were overly ambitious. They kept buying and buying and buying and buying and buying studios, but then putting nothing out. When they put stuff out, not much has been a success. But now what they're doing
seems like a group built by investors.
Now they're taking what were once beloved studios and basically gutting them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the problem for me is it's not necessarily, yes, I feel sorry for everyone who's losing their jobs in this time, because it feels really tough to be a game developer at the moment. Because just no job seems secure, and job security is so important when you are living in the current climate. The financial climate is not good, so job security is so fucking good. Like, I am so grateful that I have such a stable career at the moment, that I'm not worried about losing my job. But I know gaming industry, often project based. You might stick around with a company for about 3 or 4 years, obviously see out a project and maybe move on. But with the cuts left, right, and centre, must be horrendous. But for me as well, what I was thinking about is, when I read this article, if I was a game developer now, and Embracer, one of the studios at Embracer, offered me a job, I wouldn't necessarily say no if I was unemployed, but I also wouldn't stop looking for another job.
No, absolutely not. Because you have to imagine the first in, you're first out, right?
Yeah. And this is the thing. And I think when you have such aggressive layoffs, I think the nature of game development, you're always going to have scale up, scale down, scale down. But it seems so excessive at the moment. And it's not just Embracer, it's other studios as well. Microsoft have done it a bit.
Yeah.
If you're not secure in your position, then what tends to happen? I think what tends to happen is your talent, the people you want to keep, they're the first to jump ship, because they're the ones who find it easy to get another position. Yeah. So if they're not comfortable with the future of their company, and say you've got someone working at is it IDOS Montreal? I think that's an Embracer one off the top of my head. What if Ubisoft has a position open for Assassin's Creed Red? You'd be tempted, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah. Like,
as bad as Ubisoft can be, it's probably a stable position. Yeah, and it's also Montreal.
Yeah, we treat game developers as these people who just develop games, and that's all they do. But in reality, they have families and they have things that they do outside of work, and
it's a global.
They don't want to stress.
It's a global industry. People may have to move and uproot their lives for it. So if you're not comfortable in your job, you're going to be looking around. And if you see a more stable job, even if it's potentially a wage cut, if you're in an unstable position and you can take a wage cut and you can afford to do it, but end up in a stable position, that'd be tempting.
Yeah.
Assuming you can absorb the salary cut. Yeah, I'd be tempted to do that just as a stress relief thing alone. But this is my issue with Embracer. When you've taken this sort of approach, this is why I think it is mismanagement. You're going to lose your best talent.
Yeah, 100%.
You're going to lose your best talent, but the problem with Embracer is they've not really pushed out many good titles yet.
Yeah.
I think it was Dead Rising. Was it Dead Rising? No, it's not Dead Rising. Dead Island. Is it Dead Island?
Yeah, Dead Island was, but that was a bit of a surprise. It wasn't.
It was a surprise hit. Yeah, did well, but other than that, they've had some smaller titles do okay. But
it's a big group, though. It needs big.
It feels like they've been trying to get into that AAA development space, but not just always falling short. Losing your talent that's going to make that even harder. And when you're laying off literal thousands of people, other developers who are talented and less inclined to go to you.
Yeah, and they're going to move on.
It can be a vicious cycle, and I don't know how you get out of it.
Probably stop laying people off.
It's maybe you do stabilize the company, but then you get lucky with a couple of people starting out do really well as a first job, and maybe you keep them. But I mean, I hope everyone who's lost a job in the gaming industry, full stop, and for Bracer more specifically, do land on the feet, because to be honest, I want you to keep making awesome games. So
agreed.
You're very important to my hobby, so please do. make awesome stuff, and you deserve better than, to be honest, than having to worry about your job and potentially having to worry about uprooting your family, moving your kids out of school to potentially even go to a different country. Because if you're in Montreal, you might have to go to California to find another job. It's literally moving to a different country. That can be the reality of it.
Yeah.
But I think that's enough of that. I think we round up the show, Rob, as we usually do, by looking at this day in video game history. So is there anything that was released on the 17th of February that jumps out to you?
Let's have a Siphon Filter. Yes. Fuck yeah. Siphon Filter, 25 years ago.
I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I know the name Siphon Filter is so, like, synonymous with the early PlayStation era. I have no knowledge of that game at all.
Really?
Nothing.
Oh, you need to check out. It's one of the OGs.
Yeah.
I think that's my pick.
Siphon Filter does seem to be the pick of the bunch, to be honest.
What else have we got?
Devil May Cry 3 came out. Triangle Strategy.
Republic Commando was not as bad as a lot of people said it was.
Wild Hearts, that was the kind of Monster Hunter one that came out recently. Yeah,
it's not a strong day, is it, particularly?
No, yeah, I think the problem with this segment is we tend to look at weekends because that's when we record.
Yeah, I'm skipping forward a few days to see what else has came out.
Horizon Forbidden West came out tomorrow, so that would be Sunday the 18th, 2 years ago.
What else do we have? Oh, Fight Night Round 3 came out on the 20th, which was arguably the peak of the Fight Night franchise. Yeah. So there's something for you. What else have we got? Dynasty Warriors 6,
16 years ago on Monday, which is when this show goes live, so...
Star Fox came out 31 years ago.
The original Star Fox?
Yeah.
Nice.
1993, on the 21st.
On Tuesday, it'd be 9 years since the Order 1886.
Jesus.
It's such a good game.
This is the crazy thing, right? When you like kind of imagine a game from 10 years ago and you associate the graphics with it, in my head it doesn't match up to reality. Like games, I think graphics were a lot worse 10 years ago than they actually were.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing in your head.
That goes into my conversation earlier about like diminishing returns at the moment. Like we've got to a point where you can produce perfectly beautiful video games on the PS4.
Yeah.
It's not like when you look like when I was playing through Ocarina of Time last night, you can tell it's dated. But I think that's stylized enough you can get over it. But it's not like the early 3D polygons, like Metal Gear Solid 1, where it's just like stretched face. And it's like GoldenEye is a perfect example where they've took an image of Pierce Brosnan and just put it through, stretch it over like 4 polygons, and it just looks terrible. But, yeah.
Good memories.
Good memories. But that is all we have time for you this week. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell icon so you keep in the loop with all the fantastic content here at GamerGuildTV, such as this podcast, such as our live streams, such as when we cover things like this PlayStation State of Play, which happened. And I feel like we're due for a Nintendo Direct. I really do. So that's probably going to happen. Right? It feels overdue. We need to know what the end of the Switch is going to look like, because there's still some games. Will Metroid Prime 4 ever come out? This is why you need to keep why you need to subscribe to this podcast so you find out. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're at GamerGuildTV, wherever you want to check us out. We have a Discord. Links are in the description below. And one last shout out to our good friend Bjorn and the team who are working to bring on their Gaming for Mental Health charity event. We will be live with it on the 23rd and Friday the 23rd of February. We haven't got all our plans finalised, but stay tuned to all our socials and our Discord for news and when that happens. Links to all the charity stuff that you need are in the description of this video. And with that, thank you very much. My name's been Richie.
And I've been Rob.
GG everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.